Good evening, and thank you all so much for joining me here today. Delighted to have so many of you from around our state and beyond our borders interested in learning about the Wisconsin IDEA Principal Preparation Program. Before we dive in, I should introduce myself. I'm Tina Salzman. I am a clinical professor in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis. Part of my role is I am not only a faculty member, a teaching faculty member in the department, but I'm also the director of both our online principal program and our in-person program that meets on campus. My background is over 25 years now in public education as a servant, was in the K-12 public education system throughout Wisconsin, both as an educator at the high school level and then later on as administrator and district level administrator before stepping into the role that I am currently in now. And I'm thrilled to be in this role and to have the opportunity to work with so many wonderful aspiring leaders. So before we maybe jumping in, I should just note that our webinar tonight will last roughly about 25 to 30 minutes. We'll have time at the end for questions. So along the way, if questions come up for you, I would invite you to drop them in the chat, but know that I'll be circling back to them toward the end of the presentation. And we are recording this as well, so you'll get a recording of this as well as anyone who maybe couldn't be with us here tonight. So what we are covering then, of course, is our program overview. So I'll give you a comprehensive look at our program, what makes us unique and standing out as an overall program. We'll walk through the coursework, structure of courses so that you understand exactly what this 15-month journey will look like. After that, I'll explain and touch on the application process so that you have a basic understanding of what that entails. We'll also talk about cost of the program and available scholarship opportunities, as well as upcoming webinars that are on the horizon and other resources that may be of interest to you as you sort of weigh your options, or maybe you've made a decision and you're here to just learn more about what this is going to mean for you moving forward. I would highlight for you on the right-hand side of your screen, just to kind of orient ourselves, the Department of Educational Leadership, also known as ELPA, is really guided by a strong mission statement around creating, evaluating, exchanging, and applying knowledge about leadership, learning, and organizational performance to prepare scholars and scholar practitioners who cultivate equity and educational opportunities for diverse and changing world. And I sort of highlight this and want to note it because if you are coming into our program, one of the things that you will immediately notice is that your coursework is very much steeped and embedded in equity work throughout. So it is a unifying theme as all the way from your first summer through those final courses at the end of your 15 months with us. I'd also like to share some exciting recognitions that our program and School of Education have received. I think these rankings, not to boast, but are a signal of the great work that is happening not only in our department, in our program, but more broadly across the flagship university here at UW-Madison. Number one, Wisconsin School of Ed is ranked number one among graduate schools of education in the United States by U.S. News World Report. Recently, the new rankings for master's programs have really just been released. They're hot off the press. And this program, the Wisconsin IDEA Principal Prep, is once again ranked number 2 nationally according to the U.S. News World Report. It is in the number 4 educational administration programs nationally. And of course, I would be remiss if we didn't also talk about the fact that UW-Madison is among the best 20 schools of education in the world. And we're very proud of that, that we have a strong group of faculty, pioneers, forward-thinking individuals who are really leading the way when it comes to preparing leaders for this challenging work of school leadership. So let's turn to talking a little bit more specifically about the program and why you might choose this particular master's degree program. First of all, as I have highlighted already, it has a strong equity focus. So part of our role is helping you to develop that equity toolkit to ensure that schools, as you're stepping into these schools, you have the necessary knowledge and skills to be able to engage with these equitable practices and work toward eliminating these disparities. It's flexible. Part of our design is with working practitioners at the heart. And so our courses are offered online and at times to accommodate the schedule of busy working professionals really from around the state and country. And of course, as I've alluded to with our previous rankings, the quality of your experience, that we have expert faculty here who really make this program second to none. And I think that speaks to really what our students tell us too, as they are not only moving through the program, but certainly upon completion. Frequently we hear things like, this has been a transformational experience for me. And I have grown so much throughout my time in the program. And ultimately, really important for us as we seek to prepare you again for these pivotal roles leading our public K-12 schools. The program is 15 months long, so it is one of the fastest time to degree programs, being that it has an accelerated format. So you can complete the program in just 4 semesters. We start a new cohort in June of each year. So our next cohort will be June of 2026. Students follow a course sequence, and we'll cover that here shortly. And you are completing the program then the following August. So if I were to start in June of 26, I could plan to complete my program if I follow the laid out course sequence by August of 2027. The program is structured around the cohort model, and as being, given that you are part of a cohort, you are engaging in the same courses, moving through the program. This is done intentionally. It's a rigorous program, and this is something that students continue to tell us is key to their success in the program, is having a strong community to lean on. Even being that we are an online program, we spend considerable time and effort ensuring that we are giving careful attention to building strong community ties. And I'll just share with you a recent quote. I was doing mid-year check-ins with our current cohort of students, and I thought that this was a really powerful quote, or at least it stood out to me, and maybe it will for you too. So this student said, they, being the cohort, her peers, understand where I'm coming from. Their struggles are my struggles, and their wins are my wins. They are the best ever, and I am grateful for everyone in this cohort. And I think for me, that is really a common theme, that as students move through the program, they are surrounded by peers, ultimately who will become part of their professional network more than likely, people that they establish lifelong friendships with, that really are there to celebrate and also lean on in those moments when that's needed. At the conclusion of the program then, given that you have followed the course sequence and been successful from your starting point in June all the way through August, you are then eligible to apply for the Wisconsin Principal License, or that Wisconsin 5051 license. Students also have the option at that point to determine whether or not they would like to pursue the Director of Curriculum and Instruction or the Director of Special Education and Pupil Services. Those are additional licenses that you can add on, and each one of those additional licenses has 2 courses respectively, plus a field experience. I alluded to this a little bit earlier. What does your coursework actually entail? So you can see here in the first summer, so this is the upcoming June of 2026, students enroll in 3 classes. So that is a total of 9 credits. And this is to establish a strong foundation in educational leadership principles, and really helps us to start to formulate that strong community. That first summer is rather rigorous because you're carrying 9 credits. That's a load, and again, it's a relatively intense timeline that students are completing those 9 credits. Fast forward to the fall. You have students enroll in 2 courses, plus this is when you're launching your field experience. Our courses during the fall meet for 5 weekends throughout the semester. So there's usually 1 weekend in September, 1 weekend in October. Sometimes it's 2 in October, 1 in November, and 1 in December. And that is a Friday, Saturday meeting schedule. Meaning we meet on Friday at 4 o'clock from 4 to 9, and there are breaks, of course, woven into that. And then we have an all-day Saturday class from 8 to 5. Again, breaks accordingly, etc. Your morning, you're having 1 class, and then your afternoon, you're engaging with the instructor from the 2nd class. That format continues through the spring semester, and then your final summer, you have 2 classes, and we are working on pulling together your portfolio, which of course falls under PI 34. So if you're in Wisconsin, that is probably very familiar language to you, and you know that that's part of the statutory requirement for licensing. Again, over here, I'll just note that you have the option post completing the actual master's degree to continue on and take another semester where you can elect either the Director of Pupil Services or the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. So I want to turn now to talk a little bit more about eligibility for the program and what that actually entails. With regard to the principal license, a principal license is of course required for anyone to serve as a principal or assistant principal in an elementary, middle, or high school level. You must hold a bachelor's degree, master's degree, or ed specialist degree, have 6 successful semesters of teaching experience and or 540 hours of pupil services experience, and hold or be eligible to hold a Wisconsin teaching license at the provisional level. Now, this is really important because these are all requirements to be licensed as an administrator in the state of Wisconsin. Important because you may be saying, well, I only have 4 semesters right now of teaching experience. That's okay. That does not prohibit you from applying to the program. However, we want to be very clear and upfront about what is required from DPI to be licensed as an administrator so that you can make that informed determination on the front end as you think about program selection, your application, things like that. When you receive the slide deck, there is a link here to DPI. So of course you can read a little bit more about DPI's licensing requirements. We, of course, part of our role is we are fulfilling this requirement for the master's degree in educational leadership. So our application process has a number of components to it. The first one being an essay statement. So this is roughly a 2-page personal narrative where you are addressing specifically your potential for leadership and or where you have really embraced diversity, equity, inclusion in your own spaces, in whatever role you might be in, whether that's a counselor, social worker, classroom teacher, really thinking about who are you at your core and why is this a good fit. The application committee is looking for a couple of things. First and foremost, this is a writing sample, of course, so we would want you to take the appropriate time and effort to make sure that this is indeed a reflective piece that exemplifies your ability to do high-level graduate work, but also so that we can learn a little bit about you and understand why this is going to be a good fit for you in terms of the program. When you're completing the application, you'll also be submitting you'll submit your unofficial transcripts as part of your initial application, your resume or CV, and then 3 letters of recommendation. Strongly want to encourage you to ask people at least 1 or 2 people who have been in positions where they are your supervisor and can speak to your abilities and leadership potential. So that might mean that it's a department chair, grade level chair, an AP, principal, superintendent, someone at the district level, certainly all appropriate. We sometimes get questions, what if my undergrad GPA, life happens and for any number of reasons, you may have a GPA that is or does not rise to the 3.0 on a 4-point scale. And if that doesn't reflect your potential, then there is an accompanying statement that you can submit along with your application materials to help us better understand, really there might be extenuating circumstances, and that just provides us a little bit more context. Last but not least, we do have rolling admissions, so applications are considered on a monthly basis. Our next window for the admissions committee will be in February. We will meet again in March, and then our final application deadline is April 15th. And so that is the point at which we will cut off any further admissions and applications for consideration. So I'll turn now to talking a little bit more about cost and other opportunities. So all of our courses are 3-credit courses with the exception of the field experience. And the total program in all is 30 credits. Our tuition is roughly $800 per credit. There are no additional fees, so of course that comes out roughly to $24,000. And understandably, that's an expense for working educators. And so we have spent considerable time in the last few years working with our dean's office, and we are certainly proud to have a rather robust pool of scholarships for students to apply to. The one I would highlight for everyone here this evening, if you are someone who is in a rural setting, you are eligible, and I just would say this is not just in the state of Wisconsin. So if you are someone outside of Wisconsin and still currently serving in a rural setting, you are eligible. But we have 8 scholarships, each in the amount of $8,000 for students to apply for. There are additional monies also to help support our students, as well as university scholarships. However, a note on our university scholarships, you do need to be admitted prior to, I think, April 15th. I think those are actually posted earlier than our final application deadline, so students would need to be admitted in order to take advantage of those. And lastly, I know that this is a lot of information for you to be thinking about and considering as you weigh options, or maybe you've already made your decision and know that this is indeed the program that you're applying for, but you may have other specific questions. I'm certainly more than happy to talk through those. You can see my contact information, my email address, my phone number, and I try to be very responsive with those things. So if you reach out to me, you'll likely hear from me within 24 hours. Additionally, we have our graduate program manager in the department, Sherry Smith, and she is also a wealth of knowledge and would be more than happy to speak with you and share further information any information that she might have. And so with that, I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy lives to get to learn a little bit more about our program and also to have a clearer understanding of what the Wisconsin IDEA Principal Prep Program has to offer. And so I just want to maybe stop there and open it up to questions that folks might have, and you're certainly welcome to unmute if you're comfortable. Otherwise, feel free to drop any of those questions in the chat.
Hey, this is Sarah from Crandon.
Yeah.
How many students are usually in the cohort?
Great question. So right now we have 21 in the cohort, and I would say 25 is usually where we aim to be, but yeah, right now we're at 21, which is a great number.
Thank you.
Yeah. Others?
What would you say we should expect? Like as a student coming in, what are the biggest things to think about?
That's a really good question. I think things to think about. Gosh. Probably the first thing would be just figuring out what works for you. Sometimes students will share with us that it's been a while since they've been back in school, like meaning higher ed. And so it takes a little bit to get their rhythm, find momentum. That first summer is rigorous. As I mentioned, there are 3 classes that you're taking. But I think by the time that first summer concludes, generally students will tell us that, okay, I've got this figured out. The cohort is very much an asset in this way. I feel like every cohort has the person who's the organizer, and they share out their calendar, like, oh, I've made a reading schedule, I thought I would share it. And people just generally find this is what works for me now that I'm kind of back in this groove of being in school. So I think the first thing they would tell you is just kind of figuring that out, getting their graduate school legs. I think the other thing would be thinking ahead to your fall and spring semester when students start their field experience. So this is again required by state statute. So students I liken it to your student teaching experience. But thinking forward regarding who do I want to potentially ask, who is also willing to work with me to engage in this set of experiences as an administrator. More often than not, students are completing their field experience in the building where they are employed. That's just the nature of the work, right? It's hard to travel to get someplace during your workday without, there's just lots of issues. But that doesn't mean that you can't, if you're in a district, maybe you spend part of your time if you're at the middle school, maybe you spend part of your time or you split your field experience with the high school principal. So just, I think, giving some thought around how to create a really meaningful field experience. I think that would be the other piece. When you get into it, it's hard to maneuver and step away from your current supervising administrator if things aren't going well. And that's where I step in, and it happens infrequently, but when it does, oftentimes it's maybe because there wasn't enough dialogue on the front end, and really conversation about what it means to be engaging in a field experience while you're working. So I think those are probably the two biggest things that I could share with you. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Did that spark any further questions for folks?
Hi, just curious, do you, for your program, I'm really interested in the director of um, student services and pupil services. So do you have to go, like I already have a master's in special ed. Do you have to go through the principal preparation to get that licensure
That's a
at
great
UW-Madison?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing that we could do for you is we could review your transcripts since you already have a master's degree to see if there are any overlapping courses. I will tell you generally what we see is there are very few courses that overlap because leadership courses are so specific to that, right? Most other programs don't have a principal class, or they don't have a instructional leadership class, or public school law. So those are things that are critical to, again, building the knowledge and skills to step into that role. But the shorter answer is yes, this does require you to have an administrative license and go through the program in order to then add on the director of special education.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions I can answer?
Yeah, is there a FAFSA requirement for the scholarships that were listed on the previous slide? It's been a while since I've done a FAFSA.
That's a great question too. You do know there is not a FAFSA requirement in order to apply for the department scholarships. The only the one that has probably the most, I won't even call it stringent, but I would say we verify, is the rural school scholarship. We do verify that students are employed in a qualifying rural district. But beyond that, it's really based on the scholarship application materials. There's no FAFSA requirement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Holly here. I have a question.
Yeah.
If you are hired on maybe a license with a stipulation, does that impact your field experience, or do you do, like, if you're working, does that make sense under a license? Does that impact like the field experience requirement?
So let me just make sure I have this correct. So if you're, let's say, a teacher and you're working on a license, working with a license with a stipulation, would that impact your field experience? Do I have that right?
Well, so potentially I would be hired on an admin license with a stipulation that I'm in a program.
Oh.
So it would be a district-backed
Yeah.
license. Yeah, I was just curious how that impacted the field experience.
It probably makes it easier.
Okay.
Quite honestly, if you've been hired into an administrative role with a stipulation, it would just require you to still have a designated supervising administrator, and they have to hold the 5051 principal license.
Okay.
And we do ask that it is the principal, not an assistant principal. So beyond that, students that have been in a similar scenario probably just have a more robust experience, right? Because they're in that role on a daily basis. But yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to talk about it at another time if you have other questions, but I don't necessarily see any issues with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm practicing my teacher wait time. Well, if along the way, in the scope of or in your path this evening or tomorrow and upcoming days, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. We also have 2 more webinars coming up this spring. I'll be talking more in depth about the application, and I believe we have a career outlook webinar as well. So, please feel free to join any of those or reach out. Again, my contact information is on the final slide. I am more than happy to email, or we can set up a time to have a virtual meeting or even a phone call, and would welcome the opportunity to do that. So with that, I'll hang on if folks have additional questions that maybe are specific that they would like to talk to me about. Otherwise, appreciate you all being here, and look forward to hopefully seeing your application come through soon. Take care.